My name is Chiamaka and my team member Kehinde. We are presenting the study with title Managerial Ties, Organizational Learning and Opportunity Capture, a Social Capital Perspective by Yon Lee and Helwen Chen and Yi Liu and Mike W. Peng. This is the agenda for this presentation. We start with the definition of concepts, then we'll move over to the theoretical backgrounds, then the study summary, study findings, a Canadian company, and the Canadian company we linked with this study is the Canadian National Railway. Then we conclude with the application of findings. Definition of concepts. There are three key concepts used in this article: managerial ties, organizational learning, and opportunity capture. We start by defining managerial ties. In this text, managerial ties refers to the relationships and connections that a firm has with other firms and with government officials and regulators. These ties can include relations with suppliers, buyers and customers, and ties with government officials and regulators. These ties are seen as a form of social capital that can help new ventures in an emerging economy such as China to reduce transaction costs and increase transaction values, gain information related to potential market needs, and overcome administrative interventions by the government. Organizational learning. Organizational learning refers to the process of acquiring and applying knowledge and skills within an organization in order to improve performance and adapt to changing conditions. In the context of this text, it is discussed as being important for the management of resources and capturing opportunities in new ventures in an emerging economy such as China. Two key types of organizational learning are also mentioned. They include exploratory learning, which refers to learning new skills and experimenting with new alternatives, and exploitative learning, which refers to refining and building on existing knowledge and skills. Finally, the last key concept used in this study is opportunity capture, and it refers to the process of identifying, acquiring, and utilizing resources in order to take advantage of profitable, high-growth opportunities in an emerging economy such as China. This process requires preparation and investment of scarce resources with the hope of future returns. Theoretical background. A conceptual model was developed in the study and illustrated in Figure 1. The model weaves together managerial ties, organizational learning, and opportunity capture to explain how ties with other firms and ties with government differentially affect opportunity capture, and how exploratory learning and exploitative learning moderate these processes. The text discusses how new ventures in emerging economy, such as China, may need to use external resources to effectively deal with emerging problems and capture opportunities. It argues that new ventures in China can leverage their managerial ties to improve opportunity capture, and that ties with other firms and ties with government are two of the most important managerial ties for firms in an emerging economy like China. Ties with other firms can provide new ventures with information related to potential market needs, while ties with government can assist in reducing market challenges. The text also notes that in the process of utilizing managerial ties to capture opportunities, new ventures need to improve their effectiveness in the management of these social capital resources through organizational learning. Two key types of organizational learning, exploratory learning and exploitative learning, are highlighted, with exploratory learning being characterized by experimentation with new alternatives and exploitative learning being characterized by refinement and extension of existing competencies. The text notes that existing literature have not explored the interaction of these two concepts in the process of entrepreneurial activities such as opportunity capture, therefore leaving room for further research. This article investigates how entrepreneurs in new ventures in China utilize their managerial ties to capture opportunity and explore the moderating role of organizational learning from a social capital perspective with a sample of 159 new ventures. The study finds that ties with other firms have a stronger positive effect on opportunity capture than ties with governments. It also finds that organizational learning moderates the relationship between managerial ties and opportunity capture. The article argues that the ability to capture opportunities is vital for new ventures growth and that external resources such as managerial ties can help new ventures to access scarce resources, manage environmental uncertainties, and improve firm performance. Additionally, the study suggests that new ventures need to continuously leverage their learning capability to improve the effectiveness of social capital embodied in managerial ties, which can help new ventures capture opportunity and improve performance. It was also noted in the text that the study was conducted in China for two reasons. One, because firms in China have a long tradition of using managerial ties to facilitate business, and government still has considerable power in the country, influencing firms' business operations, making it an ideal place to study firms' relationship with other business entities and government officials. Secondly, the significant structural turbulence and market transitions in China generate a lot of entrepreneurial opportunities, making it an interesting place to study the pursuit and response to opportunities and the advancement of firms. Why was this study conducted? It was noted in the text that the study was conducted to advance research on new ventures opportunity capture by applying social capital theory as a primary framework. The study aimed to explore the relationships between managerial ties, organizational learning, and opportunity capture in an emerging economy, with a focus on China as one of the largest emerging economies, with many new ventures striving to capture opportunities. The study aimed to make three important contributions to the entrepreneurship and organizational learning literature. Firstly, it sought to build a link between managerial ties as a type of social capital and opportunity capture of new ventures. Secondly, the study aimed to integrate social capital theory and organizational learning theory by linking managerial ties, organizational learning approaches, and the opportunity capture of new ventures to formulate a more comprehensive framework. Finally, the study aimed to advance the theoretical accounts of both social capital and entrepreneurship in China and provide specific evidence from the new ventures in China to enrich the literature in social capital theory and organizational learning theory. The study provides firms with guidance on how to use managerial ties to facilitate opportunity capture in an emerging economy like China. The results suggest that new ventures should emphasize ties with other firms and engage in more organizational learning when capturing opportunities, while also being aware that organizational learning can facilitate the process of opportunity capture and that the type of learning should match the specific type of managerial ties. Now moving on to the methodology of the study. The data for this study were collected through face-to-face interviews with new ventures in China's eastern, central, and western regions. The questionnaire was designed in English and translated to Chinese and tested for validity and reliability. A total of 159 out of 300 approached firms provided the necessary data with an effective response rate of 53%. The sample consisted of manufacturing firms from 6 provinces in China and was limited to firms that were less than 6 years old. The study also addressed and eliminated 3 biases commonly raised in survey methodology, which are non-response bias, single respondent bias, and common method bias. For non-response bias, the study compared the responding and non-responding firms along major firm attributes such as firm size, ownership status, sales, and age using t-tests. The result shows that all t-statistics were insignificant, suggesting little non-response bias. Additionally, the study split the total sample into two groups of early and late respondents and did a t-test to compare the two groups on model variables. The results showed no significant differences between the two groups, further indicating little non-response bias. To address single respondent bias, the study asked each firm for 2 questionnaires completed by different members of the top management team. The study also assessed inter-rater reliabilities, and the results showed a high level of internal consistency between the two sets of answers. The study also addressed common method bias via Hammond's one-factor test. The results revealed 5 distinct factors explaining 65.9% of the total variance, with the first factor explaining only 16.7% of the variance, indicating that common method bias is not a serious concern in the sample. Overall, the study used a comprehensive approach to eliminate the 3 biases and ensure the validity of the results. Variables. The variables used in the text are the dependent variables, independent, and control variables. Some of the dependent variables include the opportunity capture and firm performance. Independent variables are the ties with government, ties with other firms, and organizational learning, while control variables include firm size, age, competitive predictability, environment threat, and adequate capital supply. The summary of the hypotheses examined in the study is as follows. Hypothesis 1 predicts managerial ties have a positive effect on opportunity capture, and ties with other firms have a stronger positive effect than ties with government. Hypothesis 2 predicts that exploratory learning positively moderates the relationship between both types of managerial ties and opportunity capture, while hypothesis 3 predicts that exploitative learning positively moderates the relationship between ties with other firms and opportunity capture, and it negatively moderates the relationship between ties with government and opportunity capture. Now let's examine the study findings. For hypothesis 1, series of models were used to test this, and it was concluded that both managerial ties have a positive effect on opportunity capture. The relative power of ties with other firms and ties with government was also tested using t-tests, and it was concluded that ties with other firms is significantly greater than the ties with governments. For hypothesis 2, which predicts that exploratory learning positively moderates the relationship between both types of managerial ties and opportunity capture. The model used to analyze this hypothesis showed that the coefficient of both types of managerial ties multiplied by exploratory learning is positive and significant, thus supporting hypothesis 2. Hypothesis 3A and B were analyzed with a model, and it indicated that the coefficient of ties with other firms multiplied by exploitative learning is positive and significant. Thus, hypothesis 3A is supported. The coefficient of ties with government multiplied by exploitative learning is negative and significant. Thus, exploitative learning negatively moderates the relationship between ties with government and opportunity capture, and hypothesis 3B is supported. The theory and data analyzed here indicated that in an emerging economy such as China, building and maintaining relationships with both business counterparts and government officials can help new ventures capture opportunities. New ventures should emphasize ties with other firms, which can significantly improve the efficiency of their opportunity capture. Meanwhile, our results note that firms should be aware that organizational learning can facilitate the process of opportunity capture, and that new venture should choose a suitable learning type that matches a specific type of managerial ties. Specifically, when new ventures prefer to capture opportunities through ties with other firms, they need to engage in more organizational learning, that is via explorative and exploitative learning. In contrast, when they hope to capture opportunities by using resources acquired from their ties with government, firms should focus more on exploratory learning. Overall, our study provides new ventures with a systematic way to manage the opportunity capture process through managerial ties and organizational learning in the context of an emerging economy. This is the summary of the limitations and suggestions for further research. First, the results are specific to the context studied and may not be applicable to other settings, particularly other emerging economies. Future studies should examine this relationship in other contexts. Second, the study lacked detailed information on the different types of opportunities, and thus, the effect of managerial ties on these opportunities are not fully understood. Future research should investigate this relationship in more detail. Finally, the study did not consider the influence of opportunity identification and capturing on the formation of different ties as social capital, especially under high uncertainty environments. Future research should focus on this issue to understand the interplay between opportunity and social capital.
Canadian National Railway Company as our company because it's a Canadian multinational company that has successfully been able to use managerial ties and organizational learning to capture opportunities that has helped the business to succeed. And Chief Executive Officer is Tracy Robinson. The company was founded in December 1918 by Canadian government, and later it rebranded in 1995 when it was sold to private investors. Its headquarters is in Montreal, Canada, and because its headquarters is in Montreal, Canada, which still makes it a Canadian corporation. Why we chose CN? CN is one of the major North American railways. It operates the largest railway network in Canada, and it's the only transcontinental network in North America. In Canada, the network encompasses 12,900 route miles across 8 Canadian provinces, which includes the 5 major ports: Vancouver, British Columbia, the Pacific, the Great Lake ports of Thunder Bay, Ontario, Montreal, Halifax, Nova Scotia, and the Atlantic. The U.S. network comprises of 6,400 route miles in 16 states, connecting Canada network to the U.S. West, including Chicago. Here we can see the company's performance in numbers. This was gotten from the company's annual revenue, which is published on the internet. This shows that they have $14 billion in revenue, for $48 billion in assets, and they've spent over $10 billion in helping the local communities, and they have almost $3 million in capital investments, and they've been able to partner with communities with over. This slide shows what their Canadian network is worth and how many partners they've been able to help. From this, we can see that they have over 12.5 million partnerships, and they have paid 1.1 billion in taxes. What caused the privatization of CN? CN was formerly known as Crown Corporations, which are government organizations that are mixed with commercial and public objectives. The following reasons are why government decided that it was best for CN to be private. CN was majorly in debt. They rarely made profits, which made it hard for them to be competitive in the market, and the government had to forgive or forgo some of their loans majority of the time, so they weren't making as much money as a regular railway corporation should be making. Then we saw the rise of more railway companies, so there was more competition in this industry, and CN realized that they couldn't also be able to compete in this industry. CN had overcapacity in some of the railway lines, and those railway lines weren't making profits and they weren't being utilized, so most of those railways had to be closed, which obviously means they're in debt and no extra stream of income. And the laws that were created earlier on concerning safety also affected CN, because now the railway companies wanted to make their own laws, which did not fall in line with what the government initially planned for CN. This supports hypothesis 1. This CN's privatization supports hypothesis 1 that predicts that managerial ties have positive effects on opportunity captures, and ties with other firms have stronger positive effects than ties with government. Then the company realized that if they went private, they'll still be able to make profits and be able to maintain the corporation. So that shows the government was handling them and they couldn't succeed while the government was in charge. So the best next step of action was to go into privatization. Ways CN has leveraged its ties with other firms and government to positively affect opportunity capture. You can see the partnership CN and Google Cloud have, that they plan on modernizing CN's infrastructure in the cloud while delivering new experiences to CN's customers through co-innovation initiatives, while enabling better connectivity and collaboration with customers and supply chain partners. The Milton Logistics Hub and CN will strengthen the national supply chain and allow CN to address increased demand through modal shifts of long U-hauls trucks to the rail. There's also a partnership with Sea Land, where they're going to be able to move power packed gens from Chicago to ports in New Orleans loaded with frozen foods to designated to go to Latin America, because we know that perishable goods go mostly through the air because of how long they can last. But with this partnership with Sealand, CN is able to move perishable goods to and fro Latin America. CN has been able to improve their infrastructure with their partnership with BC Rails. This has been able to help them to generate annual freight revenues in Canada, which is over 5.5 billion orders, and employ 22,000 people here and outside the country. CN's partnership with Go Transit and bus services in Western Canada have been able to support initiatives that have helped to integrate travel connections, improvements on onboard customer internet access through Wi-Fi, and the use of social media forums like Twitter and Facebook. So this has been able to help customers to be able to access internet on the go. And CN's partnership with the government has also helped them to be able to access funding. For instance, the $20 million investments that's helped them to be able to increase railway capacity, which has helped them to significantly increase shipping things and customers from places across Abbotsford to the port of Vancouver. This supports hypothesis 2, which says new ideas are able to moderate relationship between the managerial ties and will also be able to help a company capture opportunities. Our proposed strategy for CN's future is to collaborate with more green firms that will help them to achieve their sustainability goals, and also for them to develop respectfully and mutual beneficial relationships with the indigenous people. Thank you for listening to our group presentation. This is Group 7.